So it looks like Amy Coney Barrett is the pick for President Trump's replacement to Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat on the Supreme Court. And it appears that some senators have already come out opposing this nomination, and we are going to get into it right now in this video from what stakes are up for these three senators that have come out already, how they fared in the Kavanaugh hearings from 2018, and some of their comments on how they are not really the most accurate comments on why, or the reasons why they want to oppose this nomination. So we're going to get into that right now. So keep watching if you're interested in hearing the other side of what is going on this whole issue. So first, let's get into the stakes and the history of these three senators and what their most recent activity electorally was and how this could actually affect their re-election chances going forward. So the three senators were Mazie Hirono from Hawaii, who was actually re-elected in 2018. We have Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, who was actually appointed in 2010 following Hillary Clinton's appointment to become Secretary of State under the Obama administration, and she won re-election the last time in 2018 as well. Third senator that has come out saying that they will not meet with Amy Coney Barrett is Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, who won re-election in 2016. So it looks like that the two ladies didn't seem to get affected by their response to the Kavanaugh hearings in 2018, and it appears that they didn't really get affected too negatively as far as their re-election chances. Richard Blumenthal was re-elected in 2016, and he won't be up for re-election until 2022. So it'll be interesting to see how his opposition to this pick will affect his re-election chances in Connecticut in 2022. Now, it appears that these three senators are from states that would vote in favor of a Democratic candidate or nominee. So it doesn't appear that they're taking too much of a risk. The people who are probably the most at risk are the people who are going to reject this nominee or try to vote against or whatnot in states where it's not as heavily blue, if you will, as far as Democratic voters go. And what's interesting is that leading up to the Kavanaugh hearings were actually leading up to the 2018 midterm elections, and it appears that a few seats did flip from blue to red, meaning Democrat to Republican, during that election, and it appears that it was linked to those certain incumbents rejecting basically the nominee for President Trump under Kavanaugh. So I think it is very interesting. It appears that these senators are going based off of the idea that, or the reasoning is that this whole process is illegitimate because it's in an election year and blah, 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 blah. And I want to actually get into their comments right now and kind of share with you why they're wrong. So all three of them have gone on Twitter to express why they are not going to support this nomination, and I think it's very interesting. So we'll start with Kirsten Gillibrand, whatever you want to say. And she said, quote, "I will not meet with Judge Amy Coney Barrett. This nomination process is illegitimate. I refuse to participate in the further degradation of our democracy and our judiciary." So Kirsten, if she was standing in front of me, I would ask her, one, why are you being a coward and not meeting with the judge? Even if you're not going to vote for her, at least have the courtesy to talk to her and tell her why you're not voting for her, not just go on Twitter and do something that a teenager would do. And she says, this nomination process is illegitimate. Well, under the Constitution, it doesn't matter what time of year, what calendar year, what part of the year it's in, the president has the constitutional duty to fill an empty Supreme Court seat, or can, if he chooses. So there's nothing illegitimate about that. And she says she refuses to participate in a further degradation of our democracy and our judiciary. One, we actually are in a democratic republic, so every time someone says just democracy, it makes my head want to explode. And I'm pretty sure the only people who are further degrading our democratic republic and our judiciary are the Democrats and the people in the Senate and Congress and House of Representatives who refuse to do their job to legislate and have been basically passing on any legislation to the courts to do their job for them, which is not what it's supposed to be like. So if anything, the people who are refusing to nominate someone or refusing to appoint or approve a nomination of someone who actually wants to follow the Constitution and doesn't want to legislate from the bench, those are the people that are causing the problems with our democratic republic and our judiciary. So let's not forget that. And also, they had plenty of chances under Obama to appoint judges and to fill these seats that President Trump are now doing. And a report actually just came out that President Obama was trying to convince Justice Ginsburg to retire before his term was up so he could replace her with someone. And apparently, Justice Ginsburg refused to do that. And now we are in this position where that seat was being held onto for as long as possible. And it appears Justice Ginsburg just couldn't hold on long enough to make it through the election, assuming that Joe Biden had won and whatnot. So Kirsten is just doing the classical projection of all the problems that she wants to reviews that she's a part of. Let's move on to Senator Mazie Hirono, who is from Hawaii, like I said, and she said, quote, "I will not support the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court for the following reasons." She said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more tweets, so I'll break them down each and give a rebuttal to each one. So she says, quote, "She will vote to strike down," or in reference to the judge, "she will vote to strike down the Affordable Care Act after being rushed on the Supreme Court in time to hear the case on November 10th. Millions of Americans will lose their health care, catastrophic in the middle of a pandemic." So one, the amount of time that from nomination to confirmation for Judge Amy Coney Barrett, if it happens the way it's supposed to, is not very far off from how many days it took Ruth Bader Ginsburg to be nominated and appointed by President Clinton and then the Senate at the time. And it's not that far off of a lot of different nominations. So that's one thing that she has gotten wrong as far as rushing this through. And if anything, she should be mad at Ruth Bader Ginsburg, like a lot of other liberals I see online, for dying at this time. Why couldn't she have died a few months ago or waited till after the election, right? Or, I don't know, retired under Obama if it was really that urgent, right? So the typical projection, like I've been saying, this whole thing is just a whole bunch of mess of projection. And as far as the Affordable Care Act goes, and millions of Americans losing their health care, if I remember correctly, even under the Affordable Care Act, they had to reinforce or reassure Americans that that the pandemic would be covered under the Affordable Care Act, meaning testing or whatever treatment. So if it was such a great program and provided such great care for Americans on the program, wouldn't they already assume that they're covered under the Affordable Care Act? Why did you have to make this effort to ensure people knew this? Just saying. So Senator Hirono goes on to say, quote, "She," in reference to the judge that just got nominated, "has a long history of being anti-choice and an explicit willingness to reverse Supreme Court precedent, endangering the protections of Roe v. Wade. A woman's right to control her own body is at stake. The president expects her to support any challenge he mounts to the election results." So I'll break down the first part first. As far as being anti-choice and an explicit willingness to endanger Roe v. Wade, a woman's right to choose what happens to her own body. First of all, if a woman, I think most people support, by the way, a woman's right to choose what she does with her body. The problem is when she is growing another human being in her body, it is no longer just her body. And especially when that baby, even if it was illegitimate or, conceived by someone maybe that person doesn't want to be with or doesn't like, or maybe it was under certain circumstances that were not the best. Unfortunately, it takes two people to tango, two people to create another human being, and unfortunately, those two people both have rights in regards to that baby. So, unfortunately, that's the superpower of a woman, is they get to grow other human beings inside them. But it's also the downfall is the fact that it's no longer just your body, and it's no longer just your baby without any other rights. So that's kind of the argument I say when it comes to women's right to choose. Of course, I support a woman's right to choose what she does with her body, but once she starts growing another human in there that is half responsible for, or another person is half responsible for, I don't know how to tell you any other way. And then as far as the president expecting her, Amy Coney Barrett, to challenge any election results, I mean, that's what it's going to come down to at this point. If both sides aren't going to concede, and if the election results aren't legitimate because of whatever reason, mail-in ballots, whatever, it's all a hysteria that was created by Democrats and by people who are opposed to Trump because whatever reason, I'm not going to go into that right now, but it appears maybe he has something on all of them, or he is a direct threat to a lot of the corruption that has been going on for decades. I mean, yeah, of course, if he wants to win the election and he's the president and he has the power to appoint someone to break a potential tie in the Supreme Court, which is where the election results are going to head, especially if we have a precedent of the 2000 election. Duh. If you were in the same position, you would do the same thing. Duh. They just want us to forget that if they were in the same position as President Trump, or if the roles were reversed, that they wouldn't do this. Okay, then she continues by saying, there's 3 more tweets from her. Senate Republicans have gone back on their word about confirming a Supreme Court justice in an election year and disrespected the final fervent wish of Justice Ginsburg to not be replaced until a new president is installed. So let's break down the first part. A few senators have gone back on their word, and in my opinion, those senators were really dumb for saying those things in 2016 without any foresight or any idea that they may be in the position to sound like hypocrites, but they're politicians, and it appears they were just playing the politician's game in 2016. So we'll just give them that, and I think they were dumb for saying that. And not all of them did that, by the way. Mitch McConnell was very clear that the reason he did not go forward with the nomination set forth by Barack Obama in 2016 was because the Senate was controlled by Republicans and the White House was a Democratic White House. In this case, they're both led by Republicans. So this is not exactly the same situation. They want us to forget that, and they want us to conveniently not really remember that or not see the difference, but it's not working in this guy's case. And as far as disrespecting Justice Ginsburg's final fervent wish, I mean, the quote that was given right after her death by her family, I think anyone critically thinking about what's going on kind of questions how accurate and how spot on and how perfectly worded that quote was to be given out during this time. And it seems a little far-fetched that the last thing on Justice Ginsburg's mind is who's filling her seat. To me, I think her last wish would probably be for, I don't know, all the women that she's inspired to continue to do good work, or about her family, or about her legacy. And her legacy now is what comes of the people who were inspired by her, not by the person that's being replacing her. And actually, the next few tweets actually kind of continue on the legacy path sort of thing. So let's get into that. So Senator Hirono then goes on to say, Barrett has an ideological agenda she won't acknowledge and an expressed willingness to overturn Supreme Court precedent. Here's an interesting part. If anything, Judge Barrett is actually going to continue Justice Ginsburg's legacy by being, even if she's not willing to acknowledge it, which, by the way, was Justice Ginsburg even able to acknowledge her political agenda that she was pushing on the courts? I don't know. But by President Trump replacing or nominating someone to replace Justice Ginsburg being someone who might push an ideological agenda, isn't that just continuing the legacy of Justice Ginsburg? Maybe it's not the ideology that Justice Ginsburg would agree with or that anyone else liked that's supported Justice Ginsburg, but I don't see actually how this act is a ding against Amy Coney Barrett. It's actually something that works in her favor, meaning, hey, we're appointing a woman that has an ideological agenda that she maybe wants to push on the court the same way Ruth Bader Ginsburg did. So I thought that was an interesting kind of dumb reason for them to give. And then Mazie also says, her agenda poses a direct threat to healthcare, a woman's right to control her body, the rights of LGBTQ Americans, and other individual and civil rights. So I already talked about the healthcare part. I already talked about the women's right to choose her own body. As far as the rights of LGBTQ Americans, even before 2008, when the Prop 8 was, or whenever the Prop 8 thing was happening, they had rights under the Constitution. No one was denying them rights. The right to get married, I think, is, in my opinion, shouldn't even be involved with the government as far as I'm concerned. So it's interesting how they wanted the government involved in the right to marry, but they don't want them involved in the right to choose what you do with your body. Kind of seems a little contradictory to me, but anyways. And then she puts other individual and civil rights. No specifics, so if there was that many specifics, I think she would state them, but she didn't. Are they talking about individual and civil rights to choose what you do with your body? Because as far as I'm concerned, anyone who supported the lockdown and the whole response to the coronavirus is an individual right, civil right fraud at this point, because they trampled all over them the past 6, 7, 8 months. So I don't know if she wants us to conveniently forget what's been happening. And then her last tweet says, I oppose her nomination and will fight to deny her a lifetime position on the United States Supreme Court, and in doing so, will tell the American people the danger she poses to hard-won rights. So Senator Hirono seems to be in the same position as Senator Gillibrand, which is that they're not even forthright enough. They're just being cowards by not even meeting with Justice, or soon-to-be Justice, Coney Barrett, because they don't agree with her, which is completely actually the opposite of what it appears what Ruth Bader Ginsburg would be in support of, considering her relationship with the late Justice Scalia, and how they were on opposite sides of the ideological aisle, but they were still friends. So there we go. So let's move on to the third and final senator I want to talk about today, which is Richard Blumenthal, who says, quote, I will oppose the confirmation of Judge Amy Coney Barrett, as I would any nominee proposed as a part of this illegitimate sham process barely 1 month before an election, as Americans are already casting their votes. Americans deserve a voice in this hugely consequential decision. Well, first of all, I would say, the sham process, if anything, was the impeachment at the beginning of the year. So if we're going to talk about sham processes, we need to talk to the House of Representatives and the people who are running and opposing the president under the impeachment process. So we can talk about that another time. And as far as barely 1 month before an election, pretty sure that the Kavanaugh hearings were pretty much about that same time period, right before the midterms, and they went through with that process. It didn't seem with any opposition. They just made it a circus of anything. And Americans deserve a voice in the hugely consequential decision. Well, as a lot of senators have said, in 2016 and 2018, those voices were made very clear in the Senate, and 2016 in the presidential election, that we wanted Republicans in the White House and Republicans in the Senate. So there you go. And that may have been the consequence of focusing too much on flipping the House, where there is no control over this confirmation. So there you go. He goes on to say, Judge Barrett's views would harm real lives, real people in real ways, from children with pre-existing conditions to women who just want to be able to decide when and how to have a family. I'm fighting for them. So here we go again with the women's right to choose and whatnot. A woman can choose when she wants to have a family, but it takes a man to do that for her or with her. And when they conceive and try to start a family, they each have their own rights too, over a body that is not either of theirs, but is being grown in the woman. So I think that is just a complete non-argument at this point, and I think anyone who knows the facts and can see with 2 eyes and has 2 ears and a brain, or at least half a brain, sees why that's a problem. And I thought as a man, I'm supposed to not have any say in the woman's right to choose what goes on with her body. So why is he able to support that and fight for that right? Is it because he's a Democrat? Maybe that's the reason why he's able to fight for this. But anyways, he goes on to say, Judge Barrett, like any Trump nominee, has already been vetted and screened to meet 2 tests: a commitment to striking down the Affordable Care Act and to overturning Roe versus Wade. I already talked about these 2. I've been talking about, beat them to death at this point, but he brings up a good point. She has already been nominated, actually 3 years ago. So he was in the Senate And these other two were in the Senate when this happened. So what changed? Or maybe they haven't changed their mind and other people have. I don't know, but it appears that her views haven't changed since then. So it'll be interesting to see how that gets spun. He goes on to say, Judge Barrett has criticized past decisions protecting access to healthcare, shown hostility to reproductive freedoms, and expressed a willingness to overturn settled Supreme Court precedent that does not align with her extreme views. Again, I've already talked about this with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She had some extreme views, and she used them on the courts in her time on as a justice and before that. As far as hostility to reproductive freedoms, last time I checked, no one has the freedom to kill anybody without consequence. So, in my opinion, I think abortion, maybe I'm willing to kind of budge on certain really extreme conditions, but I think if it's not an extreme condition, it should be considered and be treated as murder. That's just my opinion. Maybe you disagree with me, but we can talk about it in the comments. I'm perfectly open to hearing your argument on that. So if hostility to reproductive freedoms mean that we don't support murder before someone's even born, I think that's pretty much okay. And I think a lot of people would agree that that's okay. That's an okay hostility towards abortion, if that's what he's talking about. He continues, two more tweets. If Judge Barrett's views become law, hundreds of millions of Americans living with pre-existing conditions would lose access to their health care. In the middle of a pandemic, rushing confirmation of an extreme jurist who will decimate healthcare is unconscionable. So here's the thing. As far as her views becoming law, last time I checked, a judge is actually supposed to enforce and interpret the law. They're not supposed to be creating law. So if people like Richard Blumenthal and other people in Congress were doing their job, why are they relying on judges to legislate? That's a part I don't understand. As far as pre-existing conditions goes, I mean, if you're legislators and you guys are the lawmakers federally, why don't you pass something saying that a private health company or private insurance companies cannot deny someone based on pre-existing conditions? And if there isn't a law protecting pre-existing conditions, wouldn't it be smart of a certain insurance company to be the one that does cover pre-existing conditions? Or is there a reason that they don't cover that, where they deny people based on pre-existing conditions? I think that's very interesting that that is an issue that is coming up. I don't know. And there needs to be a better definition of pre-existing conditions because, I mean, what does that even mean? Is it something you were born with? Is it something that you were predisposed to have genetically? I don't know exactly what that means. Pre-existing meaning you had the condition before you got on that insurance company's plan. I don't know what it means, but I feel like insurance companies in general, I mean, they're businesses too, and they have business rights, private business rights. And so I think that is probably where I think the bulk of the issues come as far as healthcare goes. And I think the problem that these three senators have is that not that it's a threat to insurance and people's coverage of, or insurance coverage of themselves. It's that the big government socialized medicine, healthcare that they want because they can control it and they, whatever, is at risk here. And also, I think this is an interesting kind of contradiction as well, is you're for the government staying out of people's right to choose what they do with their body, but you want them to have coverage by insurance companies that are owned and operated by the government. So I don't understand how they kind of go together. Maybe I'm the only one questioning this, but I think I'm pretty logical, and I'm like, this doesn't add up. And his last tweet was, I will refuse to treat this process as legitimate and will not meet with Judge Amy Coney Barrett. So in this case, actually, I think it should be a one-for-one thing. If the Republicans thought that the impeachment trial or whatever process was a sham, and Democrats were able to get away with that, I think if this is really illegitimate sham process, I think this should even it out. So we should let the Republicans go with it, even though I don't think it is illegitimate, because under the Constitution it's not. But I think we should be able to have kind of a trade-off here and allow both to happen. But of course, these people who have been preaching about a two-tier system and that projecting all of their corruption and all their wrongdoings onto the Republicans and Trump, it's not a surprise that they're trying to do that again and project ahead of this election as well. So that's what happened with these 3 senators. I'm sure by the time I get this video up, there'll be more senators coming out in opposition of this. Some have already said they don't even support it, but I thought these 3 gave very clear-ish reasons why they oppose this nomination. And if any of you watched the actual nomination ceremony that Trump had yesterday, or whatever day this came out, it seemed like a really solid pick. I liked her. I liked seeing her family there. I think it's important that from what President Trump said, that she would be the first woman on the bench to have school-age children. So this is a huge win for the moms of America, not only moms that have biological children, but adopted children with big families who are able to work, who have a husband and a family. And I think this is everything that you would think the Democrats and the people pushing a progressive agenda would want in a Supreme Court justice. As a woman who is replacing another woman who is confident, has a family, is able to take care of them, and is able to work and have it all. So I don't understand what the problem is, except for the fact that she's being nominated by President Trump, who is a Republican, and a Republican-led Senate is the one that will confirm her. It's pretty clear at this point. So I'm going to wrap this up here. So let me know what you think. Head to the comments. I would love to chat with you. Even if you disagree with everything I just said, I would love to hear what you have to say. And while you're down there, give this video a thumbs up if you agreed with what I was saying, or you feel like my opinion is a lot closer to yours, and you feel like more of this type of opinion should be around online. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up because it really helps this video in the algorithm. And if you feel like I did a good job explaining and rebutting these comments by these senators, I would love if you shared this video with someone, maybe via text message, via email, your parents, your friends, whoever on social media. That would mean a lot to me, and I think it would be helpful for everybody to have a place to come and share their unfiltered opinions without being completely blocked or censored by the person posting the video. So with that said, thank you so much for joining me today. If you are not subscribed and you have not turned on post notifications by ringing the bell to this channel, make sure to head down and do that before you leave for daily content about culture and commentary about culture from me every day. So with that said, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and I will talk to you in the next one. Bye-bye.